It is fitting that on this 30th day of September 2019, which is the Feast of Trumpets, it's very fitting that I should finish the prophecy about Egypt, end-time prophecy. She does play a major part in end-time prophecy. And as I told you in the last couple of videos, I need to cover Daniel 11 and 12. Daniel 11 is a very detailed prophecy. It, for the most part, is a prophecy that was fulfilled. You can study all of these verses one by one in Daniel chapter 11 up to about verse 40. You can study it in places like Clark's Bible Commentary, Matthew Henry's commentary, Albert Barnes' Bible commentary, and they will give you verse by verse details of exactly how it all took place in Daniel 11. What is very interesting and what is a key is when we come to verse 30. Now, let me read you what Adam Clark in his Bible commentary says in part about verse 30. Verse 30, for the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Chittim is well known to mean the Roman Empire. Antiochus, being now in full march to besiege Alexandria, and within 7 miles of that city, heard that the ships were arrived there from Rome, with members from the Senate. He went to salute them. They delivered to him the letters of the Senate, in which he was commanded, on pain of displeasure of the Roman people, to put an end to the war against his nephews. Antiochus said he would go and consult his friends, on which one of the legates took his staff and instantly drew a circle around him. Antiochus on the sand where he stood. So he drew this circle around Antiochus on the sand, and commanded him not to pass that circle till he had given a definitive answer. Antiochus, intimidated, said he would do whatever the Senate enjoined, and in a few days after began his march and returned to Syria. Now, that is a change in who is the king of the north, because up until then, through Daniel 11, the king of the north was Syria. The king of the south was Egypt. But at this point, in verse 30, the king of the north changed. And many people miss this. The king of the north now became the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire then grew and grew. When we went into the Roman Empire of AD, we had down through the ages there in AD time, after the original secular Roman Empire dissolved and was no more, there was going to be 7 resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire. I once took a history course way back in the 1960s about Europe, and we were given a textbook, or we had to buy a textbook, it was yay thick, on the history of Europe. I deliberately sat down to see about the resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire. There was specifically given in that book, which was not a religious book, it was a textbook for studying European history. There were 6 resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire up to Mussolini. 6 specific resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire. There is going to come a 7th resurrection. All of this about the Roman Empire and the resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire is on my website, keithhunt.com, under prophecy. You will find many, many studies there that will expound and explain to you the beasts of Daniel and Revelation, and the rise of 6 resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire, and one more that is yet to come at the very end time. Here in Daniel 11, verse 30, the power of the king of the north changed from Syria to the Roman Empire. We get into some verses here about verse 33, and they that understood among the people shall instruct many. We're coming down to the Christian era here. Yet they will fall by the sword and by flame. Yes, they were persecuted by the sword and by being burnt alive, by captivity and by spoil for many days. Yes, we're coming down into the Christian era now. Verse 35, and some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them and to purge and to make them white. Yes, giving them robes of whiteness in remaining faithful under persecution, even death. And it says, even to the time of the end, because it is yet appointed. There's been persecutions of God's true people all the way down from the 1st century, and there will be at the very end time, the last 42 months of this age, there will be persecution on the true people of God. A great end time persecution. And it says here then in verse 35, down to the end, right to the end time. And I've shown you on other videos the passages in the New Testament that show you there is going to be a persecution even unto death for true saints at the very end time. Many of them will have to flee, as they did in the Middle Ages, flee to the mountains, the hills, the valleys, the forests, to escape the great beast power, the great Babylonian power that will arise at the end time, as shown in the book of Revelation. We come down now to verse 40. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south, and that is still Egypt. It never changes. The king of the south remains the same, Egypt. And the king of the south shall push at the king of the north. The king of the north is the Roman Empire, and the last 7th resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire, which will be in Europe. And this king of the south, Egypt, and her allies will push at the king of the north, the Holy Roman Empire. It doesn't tell us what pushing at means. It could be all kinds of things, but it doesn't matter. It means that they push at the king of the north. And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter into the glorious land, the holy land. And many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand. Even Edom, Turkey, Moab, and Ammon, Jordan, the Jordan area, will escape out of the beast powers. The last Babylonian power of Europe will not take Turkey or Moab or Ammon, the people around Jordan. Verse 42, he shall stretch his hand upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. These are the ones that he will conquer and control at the very end time, when this king of the south, Egypt, and her allies push at, somehow they push at the king of the north, the Holy Roman Empire, and it will come sweeping down and conquer that power of the king of the south, with Egypt as the spearhead of that power. They will be conquered by the king of the north, the end time Holy Roman Empire. And verse 44, but tidings out of the east and out of the north, yes, northeast, Russia, China area, indeed shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and to utterly take away many. This is indeed then the time when this great power of Europe and the great powers of Russia and China and that whole area there, and there may be others, maybe India will be involved, maybe Pakistan will be involved. It doesn't say specifically about those nations, but in any case, the powers to the north and east of the Euphrates and the Holy Roman Empire will be troubled by them. I guess so. And verse 45, though, the Holy Roman Empire he shall plant his tabernacle, his dwelling place, between the seas, between the Dead Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, in the glorious holy mountain. There's only one place on the earth that can be called the glorious holy mountain, and that is the Holy Land and the city of Jerusalem. And as we've seen in Luke chapter 21, Jesus said the city of Jerusalem is going to fall again at the end time. Armies are going to come around it. These are the armies of the king of the north. They're going to come around and surround Jerusalem, and it is going to be destroyed. It is going to fall into destruction. The house of Judah are going to come under persecution again. And Jesus said in Luke 21, when this happens, you better flee. Flee out of there. He didn't say look for a secret rapture to come and take you to heaven. He says when you see these things happen around Jerusalem, know that the desolation thereof is nigh, and you flee. You get out of there. And that's the same with all of God's people down through the ages. When persecution has come upon them, they have had to flee. They have had to flee to the hills, the mountains, the valleys, the forests for protection. Revelation 12 talks about protection for some of God's people in the wilderness. Yes, not in heaven. In the wilderness there is going to be protection. And then it says in Revelation 12 that this beast power, this end-time Babylon, this end-time Holy Roman Empire will send out armies like a flood to go after those that haven't fully escaped into the wilderness, and they will be persecuted. And there will be at this end time a great trial and testing and persecution on the true people of God, and there will be death for some of them, and yet others will escape that death and persecution by fleeing into the wilderness. And it says here that this power will go into the holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Yes, it will be a supernatural end that this power receives. There will be some other nations that will partly destroy this power, as other prophecies in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament prophetic books, show. But the bottom line is that this power will be eventually destroyed by Jesus Christ on his coming. The Battle of Armageddon, book of Revelation 16. This power will be destroyed by the coming of Jesus Christ, the holy angels, and the saints that will have been resurrected to meet Christ in the clouds and in the air, and as they come back to the Mount of Olives, and indeed to destroy this Battle of Armageddon as people know it about, or know it. It will be indeed, this power will be destroyed. But right now, we are just in here, before we get to chapter 12, we are in where this power moves into the Holy Land and moves into Jerusalem. And then we'll read on for the rest of the prophecy in chapter 12. And we'll get to that next time.